everyone, welcome to Southern Wreaths. If you haven't yet, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Today I am making this Easter wreath. These are the supplies I'm going to use to make this wreath. I'm going to start by removing the plastic from this straw wreath. This wreath measures 20 inches, 19 or 20 inches. It's a really large wreath. It's pretty messy, so I am going to wrap it in this Dollar Tree burlap ribbon. You can use the floral picks if you have them. I used to have a lot of them and I have no idea where they're at. So I'm just going to use hot glue. I use Gorilla hot glue. You do have to hold it there for a long time to let it dry. And then what I'm going to do is wrap it around. At first I was wrapping it and gluing it as I went, and then I realized that if I did that I wouldn't be able to stick my roses into the creases like I had planned. So I ripped it all apart and then I'm rewrapping it, and here I'm seeing if I can stick my finger in there just so I have enough room for my roses. You don't necessarily have to do that, just don't do it so tight that nothing will squeeze in there, but you also don't want it super loose because then it'll hang off and slip and slide around. It's really simple to wrap these, and you can pick any color you want. And then once I'm finished with each, roll, I'm going to add hot glue, let that dry, and then I'm going to also add hot glue to add my next roll of ribbon. I didn't want to sit there and hold it, so I did stick a pin into it until it dried, just so I didn't have to hold my hand there the whole time. After I finished this wreath, I realized it would be really pretty just to wrap this and only do half of the wreath in flowers. That would be really pretty. I like this burlap ribbon. I like canvas ribbon and burlap ribbon. Those are my two favorite ribbons. Sorry for the shaking table. So I'm just going to quickly go through and wrapping my wreath. Every once in a while when I was going around a curve, my ribbon wanted to bunch up. So I would just add a little hot glue. I somehow didn't record part of me putting this on here. So what I did was take a piece of ribbon, folded it in half, glued one side to that, the right, glued one side to the other side, and then I added cardboard over it. And the cardboard was just to make sure it was nice and secure. I didn't want it to move at all. That was just all I could come up with. I needed to put a hook on it before I added anything. So I bought these roses last year when they were clearance. I think they were like 20 cents each or 10 cents each. They were super cheap. So I bought all of them that they had. So I have a ton left. And I am trimming them down. As you can see here, I trimmed them way too long. You'll see when I stick this in there. So I do go back through and trim them shorter. I should have just trimmed one and measured it, but I wasn't thinking. I turn the stem so the flower is up, so it creates like an L shape. That's just so it looks good when you stick it into the ribbon. And there I'm just using the first one to measure, and then I kind of get an idea of how big to make them. So I went through and cut a bunch of them, and now I'm just going to add them. So you just slide it in there, and I didn't add glue to all of them. Some of them I stuck in there and then added glue. I'm basically wanting to have 3 in each section, one on the left, one on the right, one in the center. I'm not too concerned about the sides being covered because I wrapped it in the pink. So it kind of, it covers anything you don't want to see. You do kind of have to lift them if you did them too tight, the wraps too tight. I just thought these colors were so pretty and they were perfect for Easter. They're kind of a purplish pink color. In person, they're a lot more pink than purple. In this video, I can tell they're super purple. I did leave the leaves on. I like that pop of green, but you could also take the leaves off if you didn't like that, if you just wanted the flowers. And you could do this with any flower. If anyone's interested in following me on social media, you can find me on Instagram at Southern Wreaths More, on Facebook at Southern Wreaths, and I also have a Facebook group called Southern Wreaths and More. I also have all of these links in the description below. I know these aren't traditional roses, but I really like the centers. I thought they were different. They get a nice pop of yellow, which is kind of like a brownish yellow. So when I add the sign at the end, it kind of all goes together. Okay, so on these ends, on the sides, my flowers kept wanting to fall down to the back. You can see it right there. So I go through with my hot glue as I'm adding them, and I add hot glue to the actual leaf, and then I'm going to push that up and hold it until it's dry. You can either attach it to the other flower that's near it, or you can attach it to the, the base of the wreath. Or if you have enough flowers, you can just add another one in there if you wanted to. I didn't think 3 per little row I didn't need more than that. I thought that was a perfect number. You do have to hold it for a second to let it dry, but the inside I didn't find that problem. I don't know why only the outside did that, but it only took a second to add a little hot glue. You see, I think 3 per each row is perfect. After I started going, sometimes like in the turns, you didn't necessarily need 3, just as long as it was nice and full. And I didn't put any behind the sign. One, I didn't want to waste them, and 2, I didn't feel it was necessary. And see, after a little bit, it gets super easy because you're used to it. So you can just stick them all in there, add the glue, and then just put them where you want them, and they dry that way. It is kind of time consuming, but just put on something you like to watch or listen to, and it flies by. And they're so pretty. And you could use all kinds of colors too. I think this would be really beautiful if you did daisies. I really like the rainbow effect that daisies, because they have so many different colors. That would be really pretty. This would be really nice for a wedding too if you did white. I didn't count how many bundles I used, but I know it was a lot. So before I finish adding everything, I wanted to go ahead and add my sign. So I'm just using the existing stand or whatever this is called that's behind there that makes it like a picture frame. And then I'm just adding hot glue, and I'm going to put my pipe cleaners underneath that instead of using a staple or anything. This just kind of holds it. I do go back through, I don't think I show it on the video, I do go back through and kind of squeeze E6000 along the edges just because it was making me nervous. I didn't want it to pop open. And so here, I go back through with the hot glue because I was like, I didn't want it to pop. But then after this, I do go back through with some E6000. And I didn't need a lot. I just put a little bit here and there because it holds really well. And then once it was completely dry, I added it. You do want to make sure they're dry. Once you add it to your wreath, it'll probably pop apart if you don't let it dry all the way. So originally I added this directly to the wreath, and then once I was completely done with it, I didn't like how far back it was or how sunken in it was. So I'll show you a little trick of what I do to raise it up off of the wreath. And you can see here that I had the sign upside down, and you can see my hanger over here. So I had to end up changing that because I had the wreath turned upside down. I forgot I had added a hook, so I did have a right way up. But this is basically how I add it. I just wrapped around the pipe cleaners. I do have to end up changing this when I add stuff behind it, but I'll show you that when I get to it. And you always want to tuck your pipe cleaners away so there are no wires facing out. You don't want to scratch anyone's door. So you'll see I keep going for a little bit before I just discover that I have it upside down. I am adding random ones around the sign so that it fills in the gaps. And I'm still turning the stem as I go. Even around the sign, you can always move it after you have it in there to position it where you need it to hide what you have behind it, like if you want it covered. If you want to cover the base. That's what I was trying to say. This flower did not want to go in at first. I had to work with it. I did find it simpler to add the flower than the hot glue. It wasn't as messy. Here you can see I discovered that I had it wrong. So I fixed it. And now I'll just continue adding. So to raise the sign up off of the wreath, I just took some pieces of my mesh roll, an empty mesh roll, and I glued them to the frame. You can add wire to it if you wanted to, just like feed the wire through the things, but with the sign on top and then what I add after, I didn't think it was a problem. So this pipe cleaner did twist, but I didn't like how small it was. This one wouldn't really connect at all, so I end up adding half a pipe cleaner to each one because I had a couple little halves in here left over from another project. And you just twist it on one side. You'll twist it together and then you take the two loose ends and wrap them around the pipe cleaner on the opposite sides. It just creates like a lock, so you can't pull it apart. It's just really strong. And then I had plenty of room to wrap the sign around. And then I just tuck it away. And I'll do the same thing to the other wire, because I didn't like how loose it was, especially once I started moving the sign around. So here you see I wanted to add a flower right there to cover that spot, but when I pulled it off, the wire didn't come, but that was fine. I just glued it all together and stuck it there, and it covered what I needed it to cover. So here you can see how gross this looked. I did not like being able to see the roll or the pipe cleaners. So I'm just using some pieces of ribbon and I'm hot gluing them to it and wrapping it around the back so it creates like a really nice finished look. Not sure why I didn't just lay it on like the flat part and do it. I don't know why I stood it up, but I know it's harder to see. If I had just laid it on its side, you would have been able to see. Maybe so I could get around to the back of the sign. I don't know why I do things sometimes. But this was a great way to cover everything up, and it just went with the rest of the wreath on the back, so you can't really tell there's a difference. Because I know some people are really picky about the back of their wreaths, like if you have a glass door or something. So this was a great way to hide all of the little tricks, the pipe cleaners and stuff. It did take a little bit of extra time, but I thought it was worth it in the end. So you can see, you can barely tell that it's different. It just sticks up a little bit further. And I had bought a ton of this ribbon when it was on sale. I got this, the teal, and the green, and I believe the brown, but I used all the brown. I just bought the packs when they had them. So I went back and forth about adding a bow, and then I decided to. I just felt it needed something. I couldn't decide where to put the bow either, so I just decided to put it where it looked the best to me. Which the great thing about this is when the person gets it, if they don't like where it's at, they can always move it. But I did brown and white because the sign is brown and white. And I like the different textures. I've got burlap and then like the netting and then another different kind of burlap with the lace on it. I just thought it was really pretty. That's it. And this is a very large wreath. It doesn't even fit in the screen, but that's how I made my Happy Easter Y'all wreath. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments below, or you can email me at craftingwithlee@yahoo.com. Thanks so much for watching, and if y'all like my video or learned anything today, please like, share, and subscribe. Thank you.